Hello, how are you? Today, inshallah, we will take lesson 2 from chapter 22, Seedless Plants. Let us start with the first plant, which is green algae. And you have to know that the green algae are mostly aquatic, so they are found in fresh and salt water and in some moist areas on land. You have to know that the green algae absorbs moisture and nutrients directly from their surrounding and do not contain the specialized tissues found in other plants. Let's check the life cycle of the green algae. The green algae switch back and forth between haploid and diploid phases. You have to know that the haploid and diploid phases switch will affect the cycle of the green algae. Let's check the life cycle of Calamandinomanus. As long as living conditions are suitable, the haploid cell reproduce asexually by mitosis. So, as long as these green algae in the diploid and there is good living conditions, this green algae will reproduce asexually by mitosis. As you can see here, the asexual reproduction, which is the orange cycle, will start from the mature cell, and then there is a diploid. The diploid cells will be duplicated to release zoospores. Okay, this is for the asexual reproduction of mitosis. If conditions become unfavorable, this green algae can switch to stage that reproduce sexually, which is the right part of the cycle. As you can see here, the orange one, as you can see, this is the sexual reproduction. There will form a gametes, and the gametes that you can see here will pair together, and the pairing will form zygotes through something called fertilization. Then the zygote, after the fertilization, has a thick protective wall, and it will protect it from harsh conditions, and then the zygote will start meiosis, releasing haploid cells, and these haploid cells will form again mature cells. Okay, happens when there is unfavorable conditions, when there is bad conditions, harsh conditions. The green algae will move toward the sexual reproduction. The zygote begins to grow once conditions become favorable again, and then we'll go back to the produce asexually. Let's check the multicellularities. You have to know that the green algae can form colonies. Sporangiora forms long thread-like colonies called filamentous. As you can see here, Volvox colonies consist of a few as 500 to as many 50,000 cells arranged to form hollow spheres. And at the same time, Volvox shows some cell specialization and straddles the fence between colonies and multicellular life. Let's check again mosses and other bryophytes. Mosses have waxy protective coating that make it possible for them to resist drying, and thin filaments known as rhizoids that anchor them to the soil. And you have to check this part, rhizoid, in the lower part of the plant under the soil. Rhizoid also absorb water and mineral from the soil. Now check the structure of the mosses. We have the upper one, sporophytes. The second part one, or the middle one, it contains a leaf-like structure and stem-like structure, which is called gametophyte, and the rhizoid is found under the soil. Mosses and liveworts all belong to a group of plants known as bryophytes. The bryophytes have specialized reproductive organs enclosed by other non-reproductive cells. And you have to know that the bryophyte show a higher degree of cell specialization than do the green algae, and were among the first plants to become established on land. Let's check why bryophytes are small. Bryophytes do not make lignin. a substance that hardens cells walls and do not contain true vascular tissue. Because of this, bryophytes cannot support a tall plant body against the pull of the gravity. So the main things that make the bryophyte small, that the bryophytes lack or do not make lignin. Let's check the life cycle. Bryophytes play alternation of generation. Alternation of generation, you have to know that it's you have to know the meaning of alternation of generation, okay? The gametophyte is the dominant. So, gametophyte is the dominant, recognizable stage of the cell of the life cycle and the stage of that carries out most of the photosynthesis. The sporophyte is dependent on the gametophyte for its supply of water and nutrients. And you have to know that bryophytes produce sperm cells that swim using flagella. So we have two forms. For fertilization to occur, the sperms must swim to an egg. Because of this, bryophytes must live in habitats whereupon water is available at least part of the year. So to let the fertilization happen, the sperm must swim in water to the egg. Let's check the gametophyte, which is the most dominant here. When a moss spores lands on a moist place, it spores and grows into young gametophytes. Okay? The gametophytes form rhizoid, and the rhizoids, you know, it's under the ground, and shoots that grow into the air. So we have two parts of the plants, under the ground and the shot into the air. Gametes also formed in reproductive structures at the tip of the gametophyte. So at the tip we have the gametes, we have eggs and sperms. Sperms and egg cells fuse to produce a diploid zygote through the fertilization. The zygote marks the beginning of the sporophyte stage of the life cycle, and sporophytes grow within the body of the gametophyte depending on the water, depending on it for water and nutrients. And as you can see here, the sporophytes grow out of the gametophyte and develop long stalk ending of the capsules called spongium. Okay? Then haploid spores are produced inside the capsule by meiosis and are released when the capsules ripen and open. Now, you have to know that here we have alternation generation, we have two stages, we have either haploid or diploid dependent on the conditions that is found in surrounding these organisms, okay? Let's check the vascular plants. About 420 million years ago, plants for the first time were able to grow high above the ground. And we have fossil evidence shows that these plants were the first to have a transport system with true vascular tissues. You have to know that the vascular tissues carries water and nutrients much more efficiently than does any tissue found in bryophytes. Let's check the evolution of the transport system. Vascular plants are known as tracheophytes after a specialization type of water conducting cell they contain. These cells, called tracheoids, are hollow tube-like cells with thick cell walls strengthened by lignin. Tracheoids are found in xylem, a tissue that carries water upward from the roots to every part of the plant. The second part in the transport system is called phloem. The phloem transports solutions of nutrients and carbohydrates produced by photosynthesis. So you have to memorize these two types of transport tissues, the xylem and phloem. Xylem and the phloem again. For the seedless vascular plants, among the seedless vascular plants alive today, there are three phyla commonly known as club mosses, horsetails, and ferns. The most numerous of these are ferns, so you have to memorize the ferns. Let's check the life cycle for the ferns. In the life cycle of the fern, spores produced by sporophytes grow into thin, heart-shaped haploid gametophytes. The gametophytes grow independently of the sporophytes, as you can see here. Then sperms and eggs are produced on the gametophyte in the antheridia and archegina. Fertilization requires at least thin film of water so that the sperms can swim to the eggs. Then the diploid zygote produced by the fertilization develops into sporophytes, plants, and then this is the dominant stage of the fern life cycle. Okay, thank you and have a nice day, everyone.